I got to ask you all this question. It's not really necessarily around money, but you brought it up a little bit with everything that's going on right now with the pandemic, coronavirus.
Yeah.
They say that the pandemic it affects people who look like us
Yep.
a lot more. With the racism things that are just popping up left and right. It just seems like every single day a new video is coming out. And how are you all feeling? How are you all dealing with this as one, African Americans, two,
Yeah.
parents of African American kids that are growing up in this culture, and then three, I want to ask this question from a spiritual perspective because you two are leaders in your church, predominantly African American, strong, one of the strongest up and coming churches in the world. How are you all coping with this in the midst of still building wealth, in the midst of still going after your dreams? How are you two feeling?
So it's been up and down.
Lot.
It's been a roller coaster because, you hit on a lot of the reasons why. We're number one, we're humans. We're a man, we're a woman.
Yeah.
But we also have a big influence on people. The words that we say, the words that we post impacts people because of the influence that God has given us.
Yeah.
So it's been tough. In certain points, we had to unplug from social media, the news, just to kind of gather ourselves. Because again, the weight that our words hold, we didn't want to speak out of the heightened pain point that we were feeling. Because one thing that we've shared with people who have engaged us, people are Caucasian and other races who wanted to engage us in this conversation is this: when we look at these cases on TV, when we see these stories, we don't just see George Floyd. We don't just see Ahmaud Arbery. We don't just see Breonna Taylor. We see ourselves. We see our cousins. We see our parents. And we feel it. We don't just see it. And so the emotions of it became a lot for a little while that we had to just kind of detach. But we came back to, lend our voice, lend our perspective, lend our opinion, because you can't run away from this conversation. This is a God-ordained conversation. This is something that he orchestrated before time began, that we were going to reach this fever pitch and we were going to have a talk about what's going on, systems that are in place, injustices that are current. We are going to have to talk about it. And for us, we wanted to talk about it not just from emotion. We wanted to talk about it. You still have the emotion of it because it's a real reality that we've been living through, not just hearing about, but living through. I've had personal experiences. She's had personal experience of injustice, of discrimination. Yeah. And so when we speak of this, we're not speaking from a third party or from a vantage point that we're not familiar with. And so it's been a challenge to make sure.
And a responsibility.
Yeah, I think that's
that we have to speak on it. And so we used our platform that God has given us to be able to speak on it. And so we've had videos, we've had conversations around racial injustice. One of the most difficult parts for me was being a mom and having to share this with our children.
Have that talk.
And not necessarily being able to share on our own timing and our own terms.
Yeah,
like
we were forced here.
We were forced to do it. And again, our son, we have one boy, he's 10 years old and he's extremely smart, very intellectual. But I told him the first thing that people are going to see is the color of your skin. They're not going to know that you're above the district, right? That your grades is at this level and things like that. First, you are a Black man. And so we had to have the race conversation with them. We had to have the love conversation. We've also had to tell them to pray for those that don't love others. And so, that was probably the most difficult thing for me was my children.
Yeah. For the first time, I was like, I'm grateful I'm single without any parents. I mean, without having any kids right now and without being a parent, because my brother and my brother-in-law and sister had to have a real conversation with my 6-year-old and 7-year-old nephews. Yeah. And I'm like, they're too young for this kind of conversation. We should not have to have this conversation right now. And it was just sad. But I really wanted to just get you all's thoughts on it, because you all are two influential individuals out there who are speaking to a lot of lives. And I just want to hear what you were thinking and saying.